Hello everyone, I'm Michaela Kathleen, and today I'm going to be doing a video that I saw over on Jesse the Reader's channel, so I'll link his video down below. But it is the Save One, Drop One challenge. So how this works is I'm going to be drawing 2 books out of my NaNoWriMo mug, and I will have to decide one to save and one to drop. Of course, not literally. I'm not giving up any of my books. But theoretically, if I had to. So, getting right into it, let's draw the first pair. I'm going to be doing 10 pairings, and how I picked my books was I just kind of wrote down a few from each shelf, and I stuck to just standalone books, not series, because it felt like it would be difficult to compare standalones to series. But I do plan on doing this video again next month and just doing series. So now I think I have all the explanation out of the way and we can begin drawing books. So, the first pairing. I feel like Effie Trinket about to draw names for the Hunger Games, except Effie in Catching Fire, because I don't want my books to have to fight to the death. But alas, that's what I'm doing. Book number 1 is A Man Called Ove. So, book number 1, A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. I really do love this book. It's very heartwarming. It is about a curmudgeonly old man who gets some new neighbors who teach him to be a little bit less curmudgeonly. And this book really has made me want to read more Frederick Bachman, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. But his writing style is just so heartwarming that I do want to read more of his books someday. But time to find out what book Ove will be battling to the death. Ooh, Anna and the French Kiss. I actually just read Anna and the French Kiss this year. It was actually the first book that I read after starting my booktube, and I was so happy that it ended up being such a fun, lighthearted, and yet somehow still deep book, which I really wasn't expecting, and I was a little bit worried that I would not like this book. So I was happily surprised by this one, and it was such a great note to start out on for my booktube channel. And it is about a girl who is going to boarding school over in France, but she's really upset about this and she doesn't want to be going, and she feels like she's being forced to leave all her friends behind. So now I must decide to save one and drop one. This was not signifying which one I'm going to save and drop. Oh gosh, they're such different books. They both feel like really joyful books, except this one's like straight up joyful and this one's kind of like heartbreaking but also joyful, weirdly. I think with this one, because of the level of deepness and heartwarmingness, that's a word, I think I'm going to have to save Ove and drop Anna. I feel bad about dropping Anna. Moving on, I feel like this was a good pairing. Okay, the last book in the universe. Good luck to whatever book this is going up against. The last book in the universe is one of my oldest books. It is a huge childhood favorite, and to be honest, it's basically impossible that anything's gonna beat this. It is a dystopian novel in which the world is kind of cruddy and run by gangs after a ginormous earthquake, and nobody reads anymore. And our main character gets a message, a spoken message, since no one reads, that his former foster sister is dying, and so he's trying to make his way across this gang-riddled land in order to see his former foster sister one last time. Okay, the poor soul that is going up against the last book in the universe, I'm aware that many papers are falling out, is The One Memory of Flora Banks Oh, I'm forgetting to say rounds. Well, this was round 2. So, The One Memory of Flora Banks. I got this book from the First in Line Club, which was a membership I won from Barnes & Noble, in which I was sent advanced readers copies for a year. So it was a very hit and miss club, and this was kind of one of the hits, or at least enough that I kept it. And this one just was kind of so light and fun. It's about a girl who suffered a brain injury like a few years back, and she can only remember like for a few hours at a time, and then her memory just kind of wipes itself. But then she has this memory of this kiss, and it sticks with her and it stays, and so then she kind of just starts trying to take her life into her own hands. Her parents understandably have been pretty protective since her memory loss, and so in the book she's trying to kind of take her life back a little bit now that she has this memory that is sticking around. And yeah, I definitely enjoyed this book. It's not like a top favorite for me, but it's a fun read. But yeah, there's just absolutely no competition here between these two. This is a lifetime favorite of mine, and this one is enjoyable enough, but does not land near the top of my favorites list at all. And so I very easily this time drop Flora and save the last book in the universe. I will always save this book. But I do feel like neither of these are super well known, and they're both good. I would definitely recommend them. Round 3. Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. Fangirl is about a girl who is entering college for the first time, and she's a very shy girl, and her twin sister is much more outgoing, and they were supposed to be rooming together, but her twin sister decides that she wants to go out on her own and be independent. And so our main character, Kath, is left with a very stressful introduction to college. And as the title suggests, she's a fangirl. She's a fan of a series that's very much modeled after the Harry Potter series, and she likes to write fan fiction. And it's just sort of following her first year in college and the growing pains of not being with her twin and being a very shy person entering college life. So I connected with this book on a lot of levels. I was not in my first year of college when I read it, but I was in college, and I was actually in the same college as our main character. Rainbow Rowell is from Nebraska, as am I. And so just reading about this character who had a very similar personality to me, we were in similar majors and we were at the same school, made this like I was reading a book about myself, which was kind of fun and interesting. So this definitely lands near the top of my favorites list, and it will be one that's probably hard to beat, but we shall see if anyone can do it. Paper Towns by John Green. John Green is my favorite author, so if anyone could beat Fangirl, it would be him. Paper Towns is about a boy who's kind of always been in love with his next door neighbor, and she's a very mysterious and cool girl, and she goes on all these adventures without telling people. She'll just sort of up and disappear, and she will often leave clues behind as to where she went. And at the beginning of the book, she sort of pulls him in for a night of pranking, and he thinks that maybe he will finally get to date her. But the next day she disappears and once again leaves behind clues, but this time she's left them behind for him. And so he spends the book trying to find her, but he finds out that he maybe wasn't imagining her quite as fully as he should have been as a full human being. And I definitely love this book a lot. It is a John Green book, who's my favorite author, but it is one of my less favorite books of his. Meanwhile, this is definitely my most favorite Rainbow Rowell book. And so in this case, I think Rainbow takes the cake. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to drop Paper Towns. Round 4. Kids of Appetite. So this is another one that I got from that First in Line Club where I was getting these advanced readers copies, and this one was the biggest hit for me of all of those books that I got. This was definitely my favorite. I haven't had this book for a super long time, only maybe 3 years or so, but it definitely immediately shot pretty high on my favorites list. It is about a boy whose father has died and his mother has sort of moved on, and the son is very upset and he ends up storming out of the house with his father's ashes, and he finds a note telling where to spread his ashes, but they're all sort of coded because they're all very specifically meant for his mother, and so he has to try to figure out where he's supposed to be spreading these ashes. There are multiple locations, and he meets this gang of sort of outcast kids, and they begin working on this together. And yeah, it's just such a good book, so moving, and I really loved it a lot, and there was a greater mystery going on in the book that was fun to try to solve. So we will see what Kids of Appetite is going up against. Ooh, The Prophecy of the Stones. So, The Prophecy of the Stones by Flavia Boujor is one of my childhood favorites. I was super into fantasy as a kid, and this was definitely one of the early ones that has been with me throughout my life. It was written by a teenager, so when I was a kid that was always super inspiring because I wanted to be a writer as well. Now that I'm older, there are definitely bits where you can tell it was written by a younger author, but I have so much nostalgia for this book, and for me it's just still holds up for the most part. But it is about 3 girls who are destined to save fairy tale land, and it follows a pretty typical fantasy storyline from there. So yeah, that makes this a kind of hard one because I'm a big nostalgia person, so if I've had a book for a long time, I tend to put a lot of feeling into it. But this one definitely is a favorite of mine nowadays. I think if this were one of my other older fantasies that were a little more well constructed, this one would definitely end up being the winner. But I feel like Kids of Appetite, it's so good. So I very, very sadly drop The Prophecy of the Stones, even though it's a lifetime fave. Round 5, halfway there. Ooh, The Green Mile. So we've got The Green Mile by Stephen King, which I saw the movie for this first, and I love the movie so much. I actually like the movie a little bit more than the book. It takes place on death row, and our main character is one of the prison guards, and he's got a sort of mysterious inmate on death row. And this one definitely feels more like a mystery than like a thriller, which neither of those genres are really like a big genre that I read, but definitely I love this story so much. So it'll be interesting to see what it's going up against. Ooh, Holding Up the Universe by Jennifer Niven. This was another one of those first in line advanced readers copies that I got. And this one was my second favorite of all of those books that I got right after Kids of Appetite. It is about 2 teens who feel like outcasts. One is Libby Strout, and she's going back to school after losing a lot of weight. She was housebound for a long time. And then the other teen has prosopagnosia. He cannot recognize faces, and he has not told anyone about this. And it's just a really heartwarming book. Definitely Jennifer Niven has a writing style that I love and connect with a lot. Her books actually remind me a little bit of John Green books, honestly. So putting these 2 head to head is a little bit tough, but not that tough, because I love this book. It's one of my favorites. If it were going up against the movie, that would be maybe a different story. But yeah, I think when it comes to the books, I am going to drop The Green Mile and save Holding Up the Universe. Round 6. Peter Pan. I think most people know what Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie is about. It is a classic, obviously. And this is a book that I think the first time I read it, I did not really love it. It is an older book, obviously, and I don't always connect great with older books, but I reread it later in life, and it really is just so sweet and has that fairy tale feeling to it that made me fall in love with it later in life. But definitely this is a case where a lot of times I like the various spin-offs better than the original. So Peter Pan will be going against Princess Academy by Shannon Hale. Princess Academy is another childhood favorite. I've always loved this one so much. It is about this mountain town that has been picked as the location where the next princess will come from. So the people from the lowlands come up to the mountain and force all of the girls in this town to attend a princess academy. And at the end of the book, there is going to be a ball where the prince will pick his princess. But it just has such magical details that aren't like traditional magic that you find in most fantasy books. And it definitely just has like a real mood to it, feeling to it. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but definitely this one feels like home. So yeah, this is actually a pretty interesting matchup for me because these books definitely have some similar feeling to them. They both have that fairy tale quality and are just so homey and innocent and nice. But considering this one is like a real childhood classic for me, and this one I didn't really get on the boat for the actual book until later in life, I was more so into the movies and the various spin-offs, I do think I will have to save Princess Academy and drop Peter Pan. Round 7. Ooh, Tiger Lily, another Peter Pan book. It would have been interesting if this had been going against Peter Pan. I really love Tiger Lily. This is a take on Peter Pan that is from Tiger Lily's perspective, of course. And it's really different from a lot of other Peter Pan spin-offs that you'll see. It's angled a little bit more towards an older audience. And again, this one has such a distinct feeling to it, different from Peter Pan or Princess Academy. But again, it definitely has that magic to it. But in this one, an Englander is shipwrecked on Neverland, and Tiger Lily decides to take him in and take care of him, which the other people in her village do not agree with because they are scared of catching the aging sickness. Obviously, nobody on Neverland grows old. They have their own explanation in this book for why people stop aging and when they stop aging. But obviously, people not from the island do continue to age and die. And so it's sort of about this tension that Tiger Lily has with the village about this, but then also they just have always seen Tiger Lily as an outsider for various reasons. So Tiger Lily will be going up against 1984. Again, I think everyone knows what 1984 by George Orwell is about. This is kind of the dystopian novel, the quintessential dystopian novel, in which the government watches everything that everyone does. And I actually read this one based on my boyfriend's recommendation. In school, I read Brave New World, not 1984, so I read this one when I was older, which is probably a good thing, otherwise I probably really would not have liked it if it were had to read it for school or whatever. But that being said, it's still definitely not my favorite. There are other serious dystopians that I like better than this one. So this one is a really easy one for me since I have very lukewarm feelings about 1984 and I love Tiger Lily oh so much. So I must drop 1984 and save Tiger Lily. Round 8. Afterworlds by Scott Westerfeld. This is a book with a really cool concept. The main character is getting her first book published. She's, I think, 18, and she's moving to New York and away from her parents and sort of starting her life. And the book is told in alternating chapters. So the first set of chapters are her chapters, and the other set of chapters are the book that she is having published, which I thought was just such a cool, fun concept. And again, I really enjoy reading about writers since I want to be a writer. I find it very interesting. And the book that she has written that are the alternating chapters are about a girl who has a near-death experience and then begins to be able to travel to the afterlife and see ghosts and things. And so the other story within the book is also super fun. And you kind of get a contemporary YA and a fantasy book all in one, which is super cool. So Afterworlds will be going against An Abundance of Catherines by John Green. This is going to be a tough one. So, as I've said, John Green is my favorite author, and Catherine's is my second favorite book by him. This book is just really a laugh out loud book, which I don't laugh out loud at a lot of books, and this one is definitely one that I do. It is about a child prodigy who is discovering that he maybe is not going to grow up to be an adult genius. And at the beginning of the book, he has been dumped for the 19th time by a girl named Catherine, as in 19 different Catherines. And so to cheer him up, his friend decides that they need to go on a road trip. And so it's just a really fun book about two friends going on a summer road trip, trying to heal a broken heart. So this is a really hard one. Because I love this one. It's one of my favorite books. It's John Green. It's so funny and such a fun read. But this one is such a cool concept, and like I really like the topics that it's about, like the fact that the main character is a writer, and I like that it's a YA contemporary and a fantasy at the same time. This is hard. I've definitely read this one more times. That could be because it's smaller and easier to get through. This one's quite the hefty boy. Oh, I don't know what to choose. This one would have a nice loud drop, that's for sure. Oh, okay, I think I have to drop Afterworlds. I'm sorry, Afterworlds. I save Catherine's. It's just, I can't drop a John Green. Not this one, at least. Round 9, almost to the end of this. This has felt really long. Holes by Louis Sachar? I've never known how to say his name. This is another one that I think everyone knows. I had to read this one for school. It's one of the few school books that I actually really loved. It is about a boy who is sent to this camp because he has stolen some shoes and they have to dig holes every day in the hot Texas summer heat. And he has this family curse that the family believes that they have because their great-great-great-grandfather stole a pig. I know it sounds very random if you didn't already know what the story was about. But yeah, it's just a very fun book with a really fun mystery. So let's see what Holes is up against. It's kind of an old classic, but not like one that's like my favorite old classic. So, oh, Casual Vacancy by J.K. Rowling. This is the first book that J.K. Rowling wrote after Harry Potter, and I actually enjoyed it well enough. There's definitely a lot going on in the book to keep you interested. It is about this little town, and one of the people on the city council has died, and so his seat is up for grabs. And so it's really more so just digging into all of the stuff going on in this town, all of everyone's relationships with each other. And it definitely tries to tackle a lot of big issues. So I liked this well enough, but I'm not super into adult novels. And yeah, this is just kind of it's a book that I like and that I have, but not one of my top faves. So going up against an old classic like Holes, I'm probably gonna have to give it to Holes, even though while this is definitely an old classic for me, it's also not probably one of my top faves anymore. It definitely was at one point, though. So I'm going to save holes and drop the casual vacancy. Okay, final round. Oh, A Fireproof Home for the Bride by Amy Scheib. I got this one pretty recently. It is a historical fiction in which the main character is expected to soon get engaged to a boy that she's known since childhood. Her family and his family have been family friends forever, and it's always just kind of been expected that these two would end up getting married. But she finds out that he's not really the boy that she thought he was, and she decides that she wants to have a job, etc., which isn't really something that her family encourages. So this was definitely an interesting book, and I really did enjoy it, but it's not exactly in my wheelhouse genre-wise, and so it'll be interesting to see what it goes up against. If it's anything I really like, it's probably gonna lose. Ooh, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I think everyone, again, knows what The Handmaid's Tale is about. It is a dystopian, and it is an adult dystopian, so not always my cup of tea, and it is a little bit of an older book, which also is not always my cup of tea. So I was a little bit worried about this one. I had heard that some people find it to be quite slow, which it is true, it is a slow book, but I still really enjoyed it. And I definitely love the TV show. I probably like the TV show a little better than the book, partly just because it was able to expand the story beyond the little bit that we get here. And so, as I predicted, this isn't much of a competition. I am definitely going to drop A Fireproof Home for the Bride and save The Handmaid's Tale. So yeah, this was a super fun game. I definitely look forward to doing this with series next month. So watch out for that video. Thanks for watching. Remember, words matter.